as a last part, we will have 2 pitches of Rudie Verweij, CEO and co-founder of Incooling, and a pitch of a fresh CTO of Brightcape, Sako. 2 small pitches, so we will accelerate a little the process that we have here. And after that, we will have a joint discussion also with you about sustainable AI, and not only sustainable AI, like what everybody is talking about, but peeling the onion. What is sustainable AI? Who would like to go first? Go for it.
Yeah. Okay, thanks thanks for the nice introduction, Imke. Glad to be here as well. Short pitch from my side will just be an introduction. My name is Sako. I studied here in Eindhoven, so I'm an alumnus of the TUE, like I guess many here as well. I studied computer science, and back in the day I helped setting up the first data science program, so that's the Yachts Master in Den Bosch right now, but also the data science bachelor. And after that I was able to be this first specialization in deep and machine learning at the University of Eindhoven. I did a little bit of research with Philips as well, and that combination completely prepared me for not that much in industry, to be honest. After that, I started in industry working at a software development company, setting up the data science department, and I just completely noticed that I was lacking most of the skills that I needed there, right? Understanding businesses, understanding their problems, working with legacy data sets, extracting this data from systems, cleaning it, all the stuff was not part neither of research and academic. In both of those cases, I was used to data sets that fit into the memory of my student laptop and that were rather clean to begin with, right? So a lot of learning on the go, you could say, and there was a frustration that was not only for me, but also from the people that I hired into my department. They all had the same struggle. They needed to learn how to do AI in practice. If the first time you had a new employee and you asked, can you give me your SSH private key? They would look at you like, I have no clue what you mean, which is a very normal way to connect to a server for all of you that are into IT, right? So I did that for 3 years. My CEO back then is also in the back of the room. He's watching on his phone right now, but Edwin, pay attention. But I did that for 3 years, and but this problem kept on coming back, and then it crept up on me like, hey, I need to do something about it. I need to work on teaching people how to solve real-world AI problems. This is when I founded Fruitpunch AI. So Fruitpunch AI is a worldwide AI for good community that aims to educate and apply AI for good. And our main mechanism in doing so are the AI for good challenges. So these challenges we source all around the world. We're looking for organizations that have a data set and a problem they would like to solve with AI. And once we figure out this problem, we turn it into an AI for good challenge and then crowdsource people on that project to solve the project in 10 weeks. And this is for them also a way to learn in practice, right? So while teaching people how you do AI on real-world projects, we also solve AI for good problems. So it's, 2 birds with 1 stone, you could say. So that's what I did for 4 years now, being a CTO of Fruitpunch. But recently I stepped down from that position since I wanted to do something new with my skills, and that's when I joined Brightcape just last week. Brightcape is an end-to-end data science consultant where I will now be sitting as CTO, helping them develop their proposition and making sure that we both can help organizations understand what they can do with AI and lead them through that entire end-to-end process, as well as doing the AI development and more and more important, also the taking AI to production of what we call ML ops these days. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thanks.
Nice.
Yeah. Ta-da.
Applause for my pitch. I never got that before.
Yeah, well, good, very good. Rudie, over to you.
Yes. So my name is Rudie Verweij, CEO, co-founder of Incooling. We see today more and more beautiful AI innovations, but where does that innovation live at the end? The data center. And that's where we focus. So right now we're looking at nearly 2% of global energy going to data centers. And one of the big reasons is because the cooling technology is quite old school. So up to 40% of all power of a data center goes to the cooling. And then if you look inside a data center, the cooling is very archaic compared to the chip technology. Now, that's why we're so excited that 6 years ago we got a breakthrough. Together with a leading European scientist, we were able to get technology out of CERN in Switzerland into our hands here in Eindhoven, and then converting that technology into our cooling technologies for data centers. Now we're working with big companies. Unfortunately, we had to do so from day one. This was quite a challenge. But with this industry, there's very little tolerance for risk. Understandable, because if the data center stops, our life stops. WhatsApp stops, everything stops. So that's now 6 years along the way. We have now started shipping our technology. And what do we actually make? Cooling systems that fit inside the server itself. So our competitors are making beautiful technology for whole room-sized systems. Think of water cooling with piping. You see that a lot in the AI industry. And we build systems that are actually plug and play inside the server. So cold air in, hot air out, like the data centers used to. But inside the server, we have basically a mini air conditioning. We call it chip conditioning, just for the chip itself. So when the chip needs more performance, we cool it down. We can go down to minus 33 degrees Celsius, the only ones in the world. And that's also how we were able to get some world records, fastest server in the world, etc. So that's what we do. We love hardware, but we love even more connecting to the people using the hardware, which is here on the AI side. And I would love to give that perspective also in this talk today.
Also, applause for Rudie. Let's go. So we have someone from more the software experience, more from the hardware experience. So I think very good ingredients for a sustainable AI discussion. So what is then your role? I said you also have a part in this. What we will do, we will bring up a statement on the slide. And I would like all of you to stand up. And if you stand up if we show the statement, you agree with the statement. If you go sit down, you do not agree with the statement. So please all stand up as a starting point.
Nice to have an exercise.
Exercise, air squats. Let's go, the first statement, I hope. AI costs too much energy, so we should limit development of AI algorithms. If you do not agree, please sit down. Very good, very good. Okay, thank you. So we know a little bit how the audience feels. You can sit down again, thank you. Maybe start with you, Sako, what do you think?
Yeah, so one peculiar thing about AI and energy usage, what you see in the news is a lot about training these AI algorithms, right? And this is not the primary problem, to be honest.
Maybe before you dive into elaboration, short answer, yes or no?
No.
No.
I'm
Rudie?
sitting, right?
I would also say no.
No. Okay, okay. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I was indeed immediately jumping towards the reason that I'm saying no. No. So a lot of it is about training. However, if you look at training, you only have to do that once. The research that's out there on training, the amount of kilowatts that you would use is typical for one Dutch person uses in 4 years of time. So put it into perspective, training something like GPT 3.5 takes as much energy as one single Dutch person would take over 4 years. If you divide that to the amount of usage, that's very low, right? The impact of training or such an AI system is very low. However, inference is not. Right? Every time that you ask a question to ChatGPT, somewhere in the US or in Europe, a server spins up and 4 or 5 of these super high-end expensive NVIDIA cards will start burning up only to answer your question. If your question is very complicated, that might be worth it, definitely. But don't ask systems like these how long you have to cook your broccoli, right? Just Google that kind of stuff. You don't need 4 GPUs spinning up in a server somewhere to answer these types of trivial questions. So be very mindful about what we would call inference, the usage of these models. This holds for you as a user of ChatGPT, but it definitely holds for you as a developer, if you are one, and you use these systems in your AI stack. Every question that you put in there will spin up several GPUs, which costs a lot of power for every instance that you run. So that will be my tip, to be mindful on that.
Makes sense. I agree fully. Obviously, I have an incentive to sell more hardware. But if you look at the cost of such a cluster, stuff like that, we'll talk about it a little bit more in a bit, but then it's really about the cost of the hardware, and the energy is actually not that bad compared to the impact that you're having. And then, of course, inference is where it's all actually going to change when it comes to our energy consumption on the day-to-day. So fully agree.
So, but if you say fully agree, but there are different sides on the hardware side, right? Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? If people say indeed AI costs too much energy, I mean there's different types of energy.
Yeah. Yeah, so one really good thing about training is that the cost of the GPUs are so high, it's such a high-end system and it's such a big thing and you want to get speed in, that the water cooling technology is quite normal there. So let's say the advanced cooling is very normal there, meaning we're already optimizing a lot. So it could actually be that a nice, shiny, new AI center made for training is more efficient than our old school, slow, legacy data center that's being used for like simple stuff. So I think it is also the genie is a bit out of the bottle. We're gonna go train a lot of stuff now. It's not gonna change. It's not gonna stay like that forever. I do think that now the coming years we're gonna try a bunch of stuff, and then in 10 years we kind of know what works, what doesn't work, and we're gonna train less crappy things that are not really training for good reasons, right? So I think that's also something we have to take in with a grain of salt now. It's not gonna stay like this.
Yeah, I can only concur. There are a lot of people training things that they shouldn't be training, and inferencing things that they shouldn't be
Also,
inferencing. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you see that this statement is specifically about developing AI algorithms, do you think that will then change in the future, especially on the software side?
I think that it will. People have been trying to train their own stuff and use their own stuff, and what you're already seeing is people are starting to optimize costs on there, and which basically means use the best that is out there only for the difficult questions, and use the lower tier models, which are also more energy efficient, for the simpler questions. So if you look at this statement, it's, as you also mentioned, the genie is out of the bottle. Nobody's going to stop this development. All of you must remember this letter that Elon Musk and all these people signed, like, oh, we need to stop AI development now, while all of them single-handedly just continued on the freight train, right? This is just not realistic. The genie is out of the bottle. They're going to continue, but people need to be more aware of the impact.
Anyone from the audience who would like to join in? Yes, I see some hands raised. Go. It's not open yet. Oh, we go switch to the catch box, I guess. Now it will be a catchy question.
Would you advocate for an energy label, maybe, to prohibit the use of expensive AI?
I think that's kind of a good point, but I already saw something about that just now in the previous presentation, right? Like energy label is a very specific concept, but they mentioned that certain types of AI need to report on the energy that was used in their development. And only the reporting thing, that they have to make that transparent, I think will already do a lot. Like OpenAI definitely doesn't want to tell you how much energy they use in training GPT-4o or whatever, right? Yeah. So they will already have an incentive on limiting that. A label could be an additional good idea, but I think that by doing these types of regulations, we will already make good steps in that direction.
What I meant more on the consumer side. So, for example, when you use, because you said maybe not use it for like simple questions, but if people don't know how much energy it costs, they will never know what kind of questions you should or shouldn't ask to what system. So that's the point I try to make for an energy label. So not necessarily for regulatory reasons, but more from the side of a user to educate them what it costs.
The reason that I linked them is because due to the regulatory reasons, they need to publish that. And if they mention like, hey, this model costs 1 trillion, million, gigawatts, whatever, then there will be news articles, etc., condemning them. It may be a bit on the too late side, so I understand your point for an energy label would be one step further and better, but I do think that this is already, making that information public will already be a good step in that direction, I think.
So you say that you propose to have a label to give that transparency. You say there are also other measures to also give that transparency and educate how to
which apparently are already in place, like will be in place. I didn't know that myself. I learned it just now, so thank you.
Learned something new. Yeah. Is that on the data center side as well, that you see that there are kind of labels coming up?
Yeah, so there is definitely movements towards that. There is a big push backwards because of the secrecy. So we see that also in our business, like most of our customers, we can't say who it is, because then other ones will know, oh, they're using our technology. They're going to maybe go in this direction then. So the hardware side is a little bit secretive, because I would love to have like yeah, in the Netherlands you have this Nutri-score for like how good or bad something is food-wise. It's a little bit debatable, but something like that for hardware, like hey, this GPU is kind of bad because of the cooling is not so good. For example, I would love to do that. There is an internal push for that, so it is kind of happening, but that's not towards consumers, but towards data centers importing, buying stuff.
Yeah, and it's also a thing in certain cloud services, right? I think, for example, I know that you can do it in Azure, but I think you can do it in all of them. Like, hey, I want to pay extra for greener data centers. So then you just pay a premium as an app developer, basically, to run on the greenest data centers that are around. So those are already, in a certain sense, labeled, I guess, are they?
And often they are now, and often that means better energy source, so green source, and better cooling. So those are the two things that are quite easy for data centers to do, and then they can have like a separate data center that's greener. Hardware choices-wise, it's usually still performance-only driven, especially when it comes to AI. There is no real green option when it comes to hardware for AI right now. It's because you're like, it's like a green F1 car. Yes, you can make it a bit more efficient, but it's still meant to go fast. And that's a bit of the situation today, but it will change for sure in the coming years.
Do you know how that works with inference chips? The AWS guys recently, in the presentation before, mentioned that they have inference-specific chips, which I guess are are very efficient for inference, more efficient than using an NVIDIA GPU?
Much more, yes. So sometimes, I mean, order of magnitude, like 4 or 5 times more efficient. So per let's say, task completed. So that's really the way to go. The inference, there's no question to me, there needs to be specialized chips. They are hoarding it, right? So AWS making their own silicon, like this is ours, and again you get more and more like opaqueness there. So it is challenging, and it is also a bit of, if you start to develop for this chip, then the chip will look more efficient because it's just very well developed for this chip. The same word, if you look at an iPhone and Android, maybe the specs are quite different, but the iPhone still runs better. So it's not just that the hardware is better, but also because it's their own hardware, they have incentive to really build a whole ecosystem around it. So I do enjoy seeing that though, being more chips and coming out. For the cooling business, very bad, because they're very efficient.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
But on the personal side, you like it.
Oh, I love it, yeah.
Good. Let's go to our second statement. We will quickly go over this one, but please stand up all. I consciously choose, before you just heard all the stories of our discussion partners, I consciously choose which digital service to use, such as ChatGPT or Google Search, based on their environmental impact. Very good, a couple of people do. I'm curious, maybe you can comment how you make that decision?
For me, I think it's also in the basis of my work. I always tend to use smaller models as well because they're more explainable, they're cheaper, and they're better also for the planet. So most people now just grasp to an LLM and they think it's the best in the world, but sometimes just a decision tree is as fine for a certain problem you're solving. So I think that basis I can also take into other fields, and it's also what we present within the company. Just think before you do something. Yeah.
Sako, Rudie, very short. Are you making conscious decisions, yes or no? On
for me, I must be honest, only very recently started doing that. Specific example, there was this this advanced voice mode from OpenAI, and I had a conversation with it, and it was approaching the 1 hour mark, and I guess you get a notification, hey, in 5 minutes we'll stop, because an hour is the maximum. And I realized, oh my god, I just had 1 hour of GPUs in somewhere running for my silly conversation. And then I really started to think, okay, that is maybe a bit excessive. For the rest, I am a performance-driven person, so I do still use what is best, what works best, and not necessarily what's the least powers.
And you like gadgets, right?
Oh, I love them.
Sako.
Yeah, for me, definitely on the ChatGPT Google side, I definitely make that decision. I have this talking, but then on the Gemini side, I'm an Android guy. I use it for play, but not really for a long time. And I do agree with the gentleman over there. I think it's very good that all development companies also look into this when they use their models. And quantization of these types of models, which is the act of making a neural network smaller, right? This is something that you do after training, after the fact. So quantization often keeps the same performance while making the model a lot smaller. And there are really few engineers that honestly take that step. It's a bit complicated, but not too difficult, to be honest. And I hardly ever see anyone do it, while it does save a humongous amount of energy. So there is, again, so good to hear that there are people working on that kind of stuff and making conscious decisions there as well.
Go for it.
I'm a little bit confused because what's environmental impact? I mean, you hinted earlier, you could have a data center running on total, you need to know your energy mix. So if you've got totally green power and you've got cooled, there could be really, really shitty energy, but it doesn't have any impact on the environment. On the other side, you could have a very efficient data center that's not cooled, but it's running on coal power, which is actually shit for the environment. So it's really, really difficult to do a statement like this because you don't know what your energy mix is. So until someone says, hey, I've got a green server, which is cooled, and I'm no CO2, then no one knows these kind of statements. It's irrelevant. People are making choices and they're feeling good, but they have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, unfortunately.
Yeah, but it's, of course, there's some caveats to that, right? That's why we are not just accepting a lot of data centers into the Netherlands, because all the green energy that they hoard due to this then cannot be used for housing anymore, and green energy gets more expensive for households. So if your data center runs on green energy solely, that does not per se mean that in an indirect manner it's not making sure that more, well, dirty energy basically is used.
No one's saying buy less televisions or watch less social media. It's only AI that's the problem. But that's not true. I don't know.
Vacuum cleaners have become much more efficient.
Yeah, only because the EU stopped.
For exactly this reason.
No. Let's do the televisions then.
I know a lot of people that have like things on their, how they call it, solar cells on their roof that they know are not going to pay back, but they do that because they want to do it greener. Those are people that often have the money for it. That's something that's definitely true. It's very good that the Dutch government at some point told to all the housing corporations, hey, you can sway paying your taxes this year as long as you put solar cells on every house in your corporate ownership. So that's why in the Netherlands, if you look around in a normal neighborhood, there are so many of those houses. So I think there are definitely steps made there consciously and unconsciously.
Maybe taking it also again back to the data centers. Rudie, is this also a kind of the discussion you have with customer? Or also a little bit the emotion you feel if you discuss this topic with
For
customers?
sure. I mean, these AI applications right now are running in very, very nice data centers because their hardware is expensive. Meaning it's usually green. They are very good at that, but also usually quite overcooled, overprotected, over. Meaning not the most efficient. So a simple Google query can be done in a much simpler data center. And then often those are more efficient because their only cost is power. So right now, the AI side, it's not really that important how efficient the data center is, as long as we're first and we're cheaper. Right? That's what they care about right now. In the future, I do agree that we need to be smart about where do we point the traffic to, that is also efficient when it comes to location. But inherently, this AI query will cost more compute than a simple tool. So maybe it's more about using the right tool for the right thing, instead of we're trying to be purely green. We're just trying to be efficient with our resources.
And maybe if we take it, because that's also very much on the company side, right? Which decisions to make as a company if you want to continue working with AI. This statement is, of course, also on the user side. You see AI is now being used by, a lot of people who are not actually data scientists or in the business of AI, but just on a daily basis. How can we help people making more smart decisions in the daily use of AI, you think?
So on my side, we are, of course, privileged with a lot of knowledge. I mean, everybody sitting here cares about this in some way, knowing what tool to use for the right thing, because we know the technology behind it. For the average person, it's not that obvious that maybe a Google search is better than an AI ChatGPT search, right? And often, that's just the education thing, I think. Where it's a new tool, And we hope that together we can shape it a little bit. As an example, here we use a lot of bicycles. In the States, it's more car driven. And if you want to go around the block, you automatically take a car, because that's what we all do. Meanwhile, here, we automatically take a bike. So we do need to be together shaping this culture that we are, okay, if we want to use this kind of thing, we do it because of this reason.
Sako, you have a little bit experience in education. Could you take us along in your vision and how can we educate users on smart usage of AI, on the sustainability aspects?
Yeah, I think this, well, from an educational standpoint, you can teach this. However, you'll likely end up teaching only the people that will already realize this, right? Computer scientists, electro-engineering, they at least have the potential. So if you tell them once, they'll immediately click and they'll, oh, okay, so I'll stop using this continuous listening thing. I thought it was a great example, by the way, because that takes a ridiculous amount of power and it's just a gimmick that I have on the table when I have a drink with my friends, right? So putting it into the education, I think that will be very, very hard. However, it is something that in the news cycle should change, right? As mentioned in the beginning, what you see a lot is, hey, Google trained this and it took a very large amount of power. I saw another thing like, oh, training of AI is now at the height of power usage. This is not where those things should be about. It should then be about, hey, realize that turning on the OpenAI continuous listening thingy, that takes a serious amount of power, so use it responsibly. So I think it's more in the news cycle than it is in the education.
Good, good. We need to bring it to a closing. Unfortunately, because we have some more statements, and I think we can go on for this discussion some more, but we have the major waiting for us. So I want to thank you a lot. Give them a warm applause for this discussion.